Afternoon, Year 2. I hope you've had a nice weekend. Hope you've had a look, mums and dads have had a look at the learning plans, our new learning plans. They've got better timetable in so you know exactly what you should be doing each day. And Year 2 children, please remember to stick to those plans. If your mum and dad says you need to do that work today, you really do need to do that work today. We're going to continue reading our Roald Dahl book, all about fantastic Mr Fox. And I was up to chapter 6, the race. And it was the race between the foxes and those mechanical diggers that those nasty farmers had managed to get hold of. The race. Now there began a desperate race. The machines against the foxes. In the beginning, the hill looked like this. After about an hour, as the machines bit away more and more soil from the hilltop, it looked like this. Sometimes the foxes would gain a little ground and the clanking noise would grow fainter, and Mr Fox would say, "We're going to make it, I'm sure we are." But then, a few moments later, the machines would come back at them and the crunch of the mighty shovels would get louder and louder. Once the foxes actually saw the sharp metal edge of one of the shovels as it scraped up the earth just behind them. "Keep going, my darlings," panted Mr Fox. "Don't give up." "Keep going," the fat boggis shouted to Bunce and Bean. "We'll get them any moment now." "Have you caught sight of him yet?" Bean called back. "Not yet," shouted Boggis, "but I think you're close." "I'll pick him up with my bucket," shouted Bunce. "I'll chop him to pieces." But by lunchtime, the machines were still at it, and so were the poor foxes. The hill now looked like this. The farmers didn't stop for lunch. They were too keen to finish the job. "Hey there, Mr Fox," yelled Bunce, leaning out of his tractor. "We're coming to get you now." "You've had your last chicken," yelled Boggis. "You'll never come prowling around my farm again." A sort of madness had taken hold of the three men. The tall, skinny Bean and dwarfish, pot-bellied Bunce were driving the machines like maniacs, racing the motors and making the shovels dig at terrific speed. The fat Boggis was hopping about like a dervish and shouting, "Faster, faster!" By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, this is what had happened to the hill. It's not looking like a hill anymore, is it? The hole the machines had dug was like the crater of a volcano. It was such an extraordinary sight that crowds of people came rushing out from the surrounding villages to have a look. They stood on the edge of the crater and they stared down at Boggis and Bunce and Bean. "Hey there, Boggis, what's going on?" "We're after a fox." "You must be mad." The people jeered and laughed, but this only made the three farmers more furious and more obstinate and more determined than ever not to give up until they had caught that fox. Chapter 7. We'll never let him go. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Bean switched off the motor of his tractor and climbed down from the driver's seat. Bunce did the same. Both men had had enough. They were tired and stiff from driving the tractors all day. They were also hungry. Slowly they walked over to the small fox's hole at the bottom of the huge crater. Bean's face was purple with rage. Bunce was cursing the fox with dirty words that cannot be printed. Boggis came waddling up. "Dang and blast that filthy, stinking fox," he said. "What the heck do we do now?" "I'll tell you what we don't do," said Bean. "We don't let him go." "We'll never let him go," Bunce declared. "Never, never, never," cried Boggis. "Did you hear that, Mr Fox?" yelled Bean, bending low and shouting down the hole. "It's not over yet, Mr Fox. We're not going home till we've strung you up dead as a dingbat." Whereupon the three men all shook hands with one another and swore a solemn oath that they would not go back to their farms until that fox was caught. "What's the next move?" asked Bunce, the pot-bellied dwarf. "We're sending you down the hole to fetch him up," said Bean. "Down you go, you miserable midget." "Not me!" screamed Bunce, running away. Bean made a sickly smile. When he smiled, you saw his scarlet gums. You saw more gums than teeth. "Then there's only one thing to do," he said. "We starve him out." We camp here day and night watching the hole. He'll come out in the end. He'll have to. So Boggis and Bunce and Bean sent messages down to their farms asking for tents, sleeping bags and supper. All sounds a bit worrying, doesn't it? Story's been a bit short today, folks. Ever so sorry. But I've got a meeting I've got to go to in a minute. Going to be up to chapter 8 next, which is called The Foxes Begin to Starve. Oh, I wonder who's going to win, Mr Fox or those natty farmers. Well, guys, keep up with your hard work and your learning at home. And I'll see you tomorrow for another story, reading on from chapter 8. Remember the school motto, if you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours. And I'll see you then. Bye now.